Hello. So for this project, I was actually inspired by Untitled's second single, Say It Again, even though by this point their third single has come out. But the reason why this video and this art project is done now is because at the time I was not satisfied with my finished product. I really didn't like it, and I didn't feel that it was close to the inspiration that I wanted. And that inspiration was the album cover of Facelift, Alice in Chains' Facelift, which I think is a really cool album cover. And I kind of wanted to replicate that. And I feel like the work that I had done was not enough. So I just got re-inspired by a comment that I got on my other video, and I'm going to finish this project now. So the first thing that we're really gonna do is that we're just gonna undo all the progress that I had previously. We're just gonna delete it all because I don't need it anymore. We're going back and we're going to redo all the effects, right? I already have this photoshopped image of all of these guys' faces together, which I pulled from a variety of places. I'm not going to go back and find the footage of me photoshopping the faces together, because all that really matters is me making the effects, which I think is honestly the coolest part, because I do some pretty cool tricks in this recording that I have learned a lot to do with layering colors just to make abstract patterns, and I think that's really cool. Right now I am making some abstract patterns, some abstract colors, just to use as basically noise and to create color where there isn't, right? So the final goal is I'm going to use one of the layers on Photoshop, one of the layer effects, to take just an image of noisy color and layer it on top of that black and white photo that you saw earlier, and add a bunch of other effects. Hopefully that will create a cool effect. So right now I just want some noisy color. And so this is going to be very sped up, because the first time that I did this, it did not work, and I had to re-go and do it over again. And I think what's really important is recognizing that you don't have to just keep going. You can go back, and I think that was something that I really learned throughout the process of this entire project, that I wasn't satisfied with my work, and you have to go back if you're not satisfied, right? I was in a rut and I wasn't making art, because I think it was just because of this project. So I think I'm going to make a lot more art, and I think I'm actually going to post it. And even though this first part I didn't actually use, what I'm basically just doing here is I'm copying an image and applying that layer effect that I was talking about earlier onto it. And when you I think it's the difference effect, and when you stack these on top of each other, with just random patterns basically of color, it creates this really cool effect where it just give you just colors, and I really like it personally, just to create color and patterns where there isn't any, right? I just had this swirl pattern I was using as the background, and I just chose to use it and turn it into something new, right? That's basically what I'm doing here. And something cool that happened was that I actually like this one red, green, and blue stripy image that I created. I didn't end up using it. You saw that image earlier, but I thought that that image was really cool, even though I didn't end up using it. As I was saying earlier, this right here is kind of the moment where I realized I just didn't like the direction that this art was going, with the red, green, and blue kind of wavy tendrils. So I decided to completely redo it, right? I decided that the image that I had originally chose was too zoomed out, if that makes sense. That the colors were too liney. So what I did is I just literally went back to the image, and I just zoomed in on the colors, because I thought, oh, if I just zoom in on the colors, then the colors will be bigger swatches of colors, which will create a more kind of blobby pattern instead of a more liney, wavy pattern, which is what I went for. And in the end, it ended up working, and I'm really happy with it. But what we're going for here is really just a mixture of all the colors. So not the reason why the previous one failed was because it was just red, green, and blue. And what I really want to go for is like a rainbow of all the colors in like basically just random areas, right? That will give you like the noisiest, most random looking effect. Because at the end of the day, I kind of want it to be random, right? There is some art in choosing what color goes where, but I did some research into my inspiration, the Facelift album cover, and apparently that was created by basically just randomly exposing different parts of the image at different times. So there is, I would argue as well, an art to randomness and how randomness can breed beauty and creativity. And I really like using randomness and on just random noise patterns and stuff like that in all of my art because I think it's super cool and it has a super psychedelic effect. I really love like making psychedelic art. I think it's really cool. Also, another thing that I did this time was I actually adjusted the curves, which is basically just the brightness of an image, and as well as the contrast and other things, just to make it so that it would be an easier image to use. And because typically like brighter, more vibrant images are just easier, but I also wanted to include more like just a more balance like between blacks, mid-tones, and brights because I also wanted to use it as like a mask, right? And if you don't know how the masks work, basically the brighter parts of an image, the effect shows through more clearly, and the darker parts they show through less. So I wanted to use this as a mask for some different effects, right? Some brightness effects I would like to use as a mask for, and some, I think what really sold it was the exposure effects that I added later on because again, my inspiration Facelift, they created that by exposing different parts of an image. So I really like, I think the exposure effect really sold it. Before we continued, I'd just like to quickly shout out my favorite Photoshop effect ever. It's clarity and dehaze. I don't know like what exactly this effect does. Like obviously, yeah, it makes it clearer or dehaze, right? But the way that I use it is not the way that you would use it for like a normal image. Basically, how I use it is I just like crank it all up to max, or like whatever looks good. Sometimes max looks a little like it makes the image look worse, but like I just change it to make the image look better, and it has this really cool psychedelic effect. At least for my art, most of my images, like most of my new art that I will make will probably use the clarity and dehaze effect just because I think it is so cool, and also that it really just works for like making images smoother. It works for like low quality image. Like I had an issue with this image where there was some JPEG artifacting and there was this really rough line, and it really helped with that artifacting, and it just is a great effect. I use it in almost all of my art. And so right here, I'm going back to look at my reference image, just trying to see like what worked and what didn't. And so what I'm realizing now is that my first attempt didn't work because it didn't have enough contrast. It had a lot of the middle tones of like, even if it was contrasted, the colors are very middle toned, and there wasn't a lot of extremes. Like there wasn't a lot of like dark colors or bright colors. It's just like very middle toned colors, and that was definitely the reason why it didn't work. So now that I can see this, I'm going and I'm taking that inspiration, taking that knowledge with me to fix the issues that I had in the past, right? Also here, I kind of ran into an issue with the effects on my exposure. Basically, I had cranked it up way too much, and so I had to like troubleshoot it to crank it back down to like, because basically my mask just wasn't working and I could not figure out why. And then I just cranked all the settings down and I realized, oh, these settings are cranked up too much. So I had to actually, it was a rare example where I had to tone my settings to like a sweet spot instead of just cranking it all up. But it really did work out, and I'm really happy with the results. And at this point, I really like the image. I like the colors, but I think that the face in the front, which is the lead singer and the, I think, rhythm guitarist. I don't know. He's one of the guitarists, but I think his face is like too much of a face. Like the other faces are like kind of abstract, kind of weird, and the first face is too normal. So I decided to just go ham with some effects. Right? I decided to pinch it. I decided to do some twirling. I think I do like I spherize it as well, like I do a bunch of stuff, just to kind of warp the center, warp his face, and warp all their faces, honestly, just to like make it even more abstract, more like their faces are just, they're lifting, if you will. Keep referencing that album cover, but I really think it's such a great one. Another Photoshop effect that I use a lot is the selective color effect, and basically allows you to take a color and to edit colors that resemble that color. So it allows you to edit the greens of an image, the cyans of an image. And so with this image, I did not like how the cyans turned out, right? The Faces album cover has not a lot of cyan on it. It has some greens on it. So I wanted to turn the cyan into green, and that just was not working for me the way I wanted it to. And so at the end of the day, because I didn't like the cyan as much, the cyan was just too saturated, looked too close to like an OOFFFF hex code, which, if you don't know, is like the bright cyan. Sorry, I did memorize hex codes. I'm a bit of a nerd in that sense, but it just was way too bright, way too saturated. And so how I actually got around this, I think, is super interesting. I switched, or I downloaded it and I switched it to a CMYK color mode. And basically what that does is CMYK has like less colors than RGB. Because it can't go, it's for printing, it's not as saturated. And an album would be in CMYK regardless, because you need to print it. You could definitely not get such bright colors that I have here, like on a physical album. But also, it served to, for me at least, it muted the cyan. It also kind of muted the yellow, which I didn't really mind, but it muted the cyan, which was great. It's just what I wanted, and that eventually, even though it wasn't the best, like I still would rather cyan green, I think it turned out great, and I'm happy with the result. So that was me making a second album cover inspired by this band. I think I might actually post it somewhere, probably to Instagram. I have an account that I made specifically just to steal images off of the website, because it wouldn't let me do it without an account. But I think I will start posting there. I'll spam post a backlog of my art, and I'll link it in the description maybe. Check it out if you want. I don't know. I don't care. Anyway, goodbye. Have a nice day.